cleverly and quite clearly and quite sufficiently by the lunar cycle alone. Oftentimes, that's all you need to know in order to understand people and their behaviors. Motivation, drive, intention, desire are all on the increase from new moon to full moon. That's the time to pursue new objectives and make new things happen. Drive, determination, and physical vitality are slightly on the decrease during the waning moon, and it's harder to engage people and get new projects started or plant a new idea in someone's mind during the waning phase because it's out of kilter with the cycles of nature. So if you work with the cycles of nature, the waning moon period is the time for letting go, getting rid of trash, throwing out, recycling, going through your papers, throwing out the ones you don't need anymore, eliminating what's unnecessary, and getting back down to the essential self. And then what comes with the new moon is that new inspiration, that strong impulse that may come through dream time, through meditation, or just thinking. A realization ignites, and there's this new burst of energy, and that's the time from there until full moon to reach out to others, promote your ideas, try to engage others in new projects, ideas, elicit their cooperation, and move ahead in that way. That's the important thing to know about the lunar cycle. Next up, feeling the energies. Welcome, star friends. This is Maureen Richmond, and you're listening to STARSPEAK on the UNX Digital Broadcasting Network. I'm so glad you've tuned in and listened to this program and give some thought to the astrological energies that are affecting all of us. In this section, for the next topic of discussion, we will consider what the energies are right now that we're feeling the energies. Today is September the 13th, 2023, and we're at the very end of the current lunar cycle. We're in the final hours of the current lunar cycle, as a matter of fact. For the new moon is going to occur tomorrow, September 14, at 8:40 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Yes, again, that's Thursday, September 14 at 8:40 p.m. Central Daylight Time. So adjust that time if you're in a different time zone. That's the point at which the sun and the moon, or if you like it better said, the moon and the sun, will reach the same degree of the zodiac. In this case, it'll be 22 degrees of Virgo. And they'll both reach that position at 8:40 p.m. It's a very precise measurement. Astrology in general is a practice that deals with rather precise and exacting measurements. It's different from psychic perception and advising in that regard. It's quite mathematical and, as you can see, very closely related to observational astronomy. So astrology works a little differently, and there are the important moments to consider. Well, the next important moment to consider that we're going to be feeling the energies from comes very soon. It's Thursday, September the 14th at 8:40 p.m. Central Daylight Time. And the sun and the moon will conjoin at 22 degrees of Virgo. So we get a blast of Virgo energy. That's a good thing because Virgo is a very competent, analytical, clear-minded sign. That's its function in the zodiac, and we need that. Every sign in the zodiac fulfills a function. It's part of the wholeness of the circle. That's what the circle of the zodiac symbolizes, wholeness. And each one of the 12 signs within it fulfills a function that creates that totality. Virgo makes a very important contribution. It's the capacity within all human beings for logical deduction, for the examination of data, for the consideration of numbers, graphs, and measurements, for the creation of those methods of thinking and analysis. It's a mathematical, it's a technical sign. It has great capabilities in the area of technology. And in our world today, we all need competence in technology. So this new moon at 22 degrees of Virgo brings us an opportunity to connect with that technological, mathematical, scientific, engineering capability that's built into the sign of Virgo. Now, interestingly, this 22-degree Virgo position itself is important right now because that's where Mercury turned retrograde back on August the 23rd. And that's another thing that we're feeling right now. We're feeling the final stages of the Mercury retrograde formal period. That's right. We're feeling the final hours and stages of retrograde Mercury because Mercury will go direct on Friday, September 15th at 3:21 p.m. Central Daylight Time. That's right. Friday, September the 15th at 3:21 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Adjust that if you're in a different time zone. Mercury will make its station and turn direct. That means that it will appear to stand still in the zodiac and then resume normal direct motion in the zodiac at that time. Friday, September the 15th, 3:21 p.m. So what this means is that we're in the last few days of the current formal retrograde period. And as we've discussed in so many other episodes, retrograde Mercury can bring types of complications in human communications. Misunderstandings sometimes arise, and faulty information is often in the picture. Sometimes it's not anybody's deliberate doing. It's a mistake or a fault or misrecording or a misstatement that can end up causing a long chain of problematic reactions to it. So we're at the final stages of that, of kind of clearing up all the confusions and wrong communications and little mistakes and slips of the tongue and failures to respond to emails and hurt feelings and all of that stuff that comes with retrograde Mercury. We're in the final days of seeing that and the consequences of it. It's about to change, and we're starting to feel that too. Very soon now, Friday, September the 15th, 3:21 p.m., some of these communication issues are going to start to get cleared up. People who have been at odds with each other for no particularly good reason will be able to sort it out and come to a meeting of the minds. Or if it's been a case of a mistaken notion, the problem at the basis of it will be found. If there's a case of wrong information that has been passed around, that will be discovered progressively after Friday's change. You'll be able to feel the winds of change almost immediately, but they'll begin to blow much stronger in the weeks ahead as Mercury gains normal zodiacal motion. So you can look forward to that. These are some of the energies that we're most definitely feeling now. And the new moon plays into it, occurring at 22 degrees of Virgo, which is where Mercury originally went retrograde in the zodiac on August the 23rd. So the new moon will be activating that very position, that very degree, and giving us a new look, a different look, a more analytical, perhaps more accurate perception of what happened back there on August 23. what went wrong, what the misunderstandings were, what the real truth of the situation was that we perhaps did not know at that time. I think this is something that we can legitimately look forward to. I'm all for clarification and getting at the truth. And I think there's going to be a generous dose of that, which will develop beginning with even as early as the new moon tomorrow night, and more so over the next few days and weeks as Mercury itself begins to turn in zodiacal motion and go in its normal zodiacal motion. Other energies that we'll be feeling over the next week include Venus-Jupiter square this weekend on Saturday, September 16, and Sunday, September 17. That's a Venus-Jupiter square. Both of those celestial bodies are considered benefics in astrology, so there's not much bad about that aspect, although it might possibly conduce, or probably will conduce, to tendency to overdo, get too much of a good thing, indulge during that period. So perhaps it's a good idea to bear that in mind and think twice about food, drink, and spending during this weekend before it gets out of hand. The next major influence after that occurs on Tuesday, September the 19th, when the Sun at 26 degrees of Virgo makes an opposition to Neptune at 26 degrees of Pisces. This will be an interesting passage. That exact opposition occurs on Tuesday, September 19th, but we're likely to feel that energy on the 18th, 19th, and 20th as well. What type of energy is it? Well, it's inherently a confrontation of the individual, as symbolized by the Sun, with transcendent forces, as symbolized by the outer planet Neptune, which in astrology connects to the world of spirituality, the world of imagination, the world of artistic endeavor, and many other intangibles. Virgo, where the Sun will be, is a sign of tangibles, of hard, cold facts, scientific analysis. Neptune is in Pisces, the opposite approach to the analysis of experience. And so as these two factors oppose each other, Sun and Virgo opposing Neptune and Pisces, it can't but invite a situation in which we starkly see the difference between those two approaches. The stronger one is the Neptune and Pisces, because in astrology, the planet that has the slower zodiacal motion has the greater zodiacal impact. Neptune and Pisces wins that battle then. And so we go off into a pleasant reverie and meditation or trance, and it might be just the very best thing to let go of the, my goodness, the perseverating, anxiety-driven, data-obsessed Virgo functionality within all of us, and for a moment let go and enjoy ourselves in the world of peace and dreaming, of music, of dance and poetry, reading novels, watching films, letting our imaginations have free reign. That's the kind of thing we're likely to see in the 18, 19, 20 September pocket. And that takes us right up to the Wednesday, Thursday pocket, when the Sun at 28 degrees of Virgo makes a trine to Pluto and gives us some settled, relaxed, unstressful circumstances and conditions to enjoy that could also bring good fortune for many in the form of right employment and or certainly right use of talents. That's again the 20th and 21st of September, when the Sun at 28 degrees of Virgo makes a peaceful, serene, and stabilizing trine to Pluto in Capricorn. Health matters will be assisted by this influence, and for people who have been buffeted by retrograde Mercury in the health and healing sign of Virgo. The projection is...
It's almost here, ladies and gentlemen. The Onyx.
Hey, the projection is promising for a good solution, some type of healing modality that will, in fact, be very successful. I think Mr. Producer Man was trying to tell me something there. So it's time for us to take that bottom of the hour break. Remember, you're listening to STARSPEAK with Maureen Richmond on the Onyx Digital Broadcasting Network. And I'll be right back after this with Next Up, which is the Astrology of Ufology.
It's almost here, ladies and gentlemen. The Onyx Network Year 2 anniversary at XCon 2023. XCon is being held this year from October the 30th to November 1st at the beautiful Oasis Hotel and Conference Center in Springfield, Missouri. Top speakers include host of America Unearthed, Scott Walter, plus Haley Ramsey, Sev Tok, Onyx's very own Maureen Richmond and Dan Terry, Mindy Toutfest, Harriet McFeely, Forrest Crawford, and many more. And they're all coming to deliver new information on topics like UFOs, alien encounters, cryptids and ancient secrets, and real hauntings from the afterlife. Join us for the film premiere of A Haunting in Blue Hill. And don't miss the Mad Hatter Paranormal Halloween Bash, Banquet, and Costume Contest on All Hallows Eve, October 31st. So join us as we close out the 2023 conference season. Info and tickets are available now at unxnetwork.com. That's unxnetwork.com, and we'll see you there.
Hey there, star friends. In the earlier segment tonight, I talked about the importance of the new moon in the lunar cycle. It's so interesting that certain historical UFO encounters have actually happened right around the new moon activity. And some new moons are solar eclipses because the sun and the moon are particularly well aligned, so much so that the moon actually obscures the light of the sun. That's a special case. It's a very strong new moon, but it's a new moon nonetheless. So let's have a look at what some of these the UFO encounters were that actually occurred during such times. I want to take you right back, first of all, to the year 1975. Now, there were some of us who were actually alive during that time. We remember that. But for all you young'uns, let me take you back to 1975 in your imagination. There was a new moon solar eclipse on November the 2nd. 1975. And there are two very important historical UFO encounters that occurred right around this period. First of all, on the very day of the new moon solar eclipse, there was a big sighting, a big group or mass, depending on how you define mass, a big group sighting around a football field. Bear in mind, this was 1975, and so football games were a big deal in the small town life. And in a small town in Minnesota, Medford, Minnesota, there were some people lingering around a football field after a game, and there were some law enforcement officers with them. And lo and behold, if they didn't all see a glowing craft descend and hover, even get real close to the ground and perhaps land right there on the football field. And they watched it for, I think it was about 10 minutes, and there were around 20 witnesses. Afterwards, it was discovered that a ring of burned grass plainly browned, destroyed, and burned, was left right behind where this craft had been seen by 20 people. Now, all this happened just hours before the exact solar eclipse moment. Yes, just hours before. So in terms of astrological causation, that solar eclipse is involved. It's like the attractor in time to an event, bringing it to occur at that time. Just a few days later, way out in Arizona, in Snowflake or near Snowflake, Arizona, in the Sitgreaves National Forest, something else was going to happen on November 5, 1975, just a few days following that powerful solar eclipse. And that was, of course, the famous Travis Walton sighting and abduction. In this event, 6 young men who had been working in the forest all day long all saw a sizable, glowing, hovering craft. And one of their number, and that was, of course, Travis Walton, was so curious that he just couldn't contain himself. And he walked up toward the craft. And you all know the story from there. A beam of light came out of the craft, hit his body, apparently stunned him, knocked him down, maybe dead. The other fellows were frightened out of their wits and didn't know what to do. First they ran away, then they came back to try to get their buddy, and couldn't find his physical body anywhere, not where they had seen it fall. And Travis Walton was gone for 5 days, showing up later in a different location. He had memories of having been taken aboard a ship, and some think he had actually been accidentally killed by that light beam and revived by the healing powers that the aliens had on the ship. So the important thing here to bear in mind is these 2 events, the Medford, Minnesota, and the Travis Walton abduction event, clustered right around a solar eclipse moment. That solar eclipse occurred in the zodiac at 10 degrees of Scorpio. Scorpio is a sign of life and death, of disintegration and resurrection, and cathartic process. I think that applies for both of these situations. Solar eclipse, and we have 2 very important historical UFO encounters. Now, there was also a new moon solar eclipse in the year 1991. So let me take you back to that year. In the year 1991, on July 11, there was a new moon solar eclipse at the zodiacal position of 19 degrees Cancer. The sign of Cancer is associated with the mass of humanity, all of humanity. And it was a mass sighting which occurred in Mexico City at that time, with multiple craft parading over the city in slow fashion, allowing thousands of viewers to get a good leisurely look at unknown, unidentified flying objects. That was July 11, 1991, the new moon solar eclipse, and a mass sighting occurred. In the year 1996, there was a new moon in January, which was not a solar eclipse, but it was still a new moon. And it correlated to a very dramatic UFO encounter called the Varginha incident, which occurred in a small rural village in Brazil, Varginha, Brazil. Most of the viewers here will know about this period, about this incident from the famous film Moment of Contact, which was made by James Fox. So this is a very important and captivating UFO encounter because it involved beings that apparently were not from of the earth, not from or of the earth, and human interaction with them. Now, the new moon on that day occurred at the zodiacal position of 29 degrees of Capricorn and 45 minutes. So the 29th degree of Capricorn. At that time, the planet Uranus stood at 0 degrees of Aquarius in 27 minutes. So within the first degree of Aquarius. Those two positions are very close together. So that means that the sun and the moon and Uranus were all astrologically and zodiacally conjunct together, seen through the same degree of the ecliptic from the position of the earth. And that's a very powerful arrangement. Uranus symbolizes anomalies of all sorts. Well, it certainly manifested in this circumstance. In the beginning of the incident, during the nighttime, a burning object was seen to rapidly pass through the sky over Varginha, Brazil, and crash in an undeveloped area. The next day, several village residents saw unusual beings that had 3 small horns on the tops of their heads, spaced so, and oily skin, dark brown, and very red eyes. Their arms were a little bit longer than humans, and their feet were bigger. Several residents saw this, and some of the residents even actually got close enough to touch one. One of these unusual beings was apparently injured, and a good-hearted Brazilian picked this entity up and took it to a hospital, and so actually came into physical contact. So the story goes. Some people don't believe this, but James Fox did and made a film about it. The individual who touched that alien, or allegedly touched that alien, later deceased from an unknown bacterial infection. So this is one of the most extraordinary of UFO encounters known on the planet, January 20th, 1996, and it occurred on the very day of a new moon at 29 degrees of Capricorn. That means the sun and the moon were conjoined at the 29th degree of Capricorn, very close to the position for Uranus in the first degree of Aquarius. That's an unusual development, and you can see it correlates to an unusual occurrence in the physical world. One more. There was a new moon on January 6th, the year 2000. January 6th, the year 2000. And about 32 hours before that, there was another mass sighting in the area of East St. Louis, Illinois. So that would be just to the east side of St. Louis, across the Mississippi River and into the St. Louis area. In that particular region, several people saw a large triangular craft. Really, it was a huge triangular craft, I should say, slowly progressing over various urban areas in the East St. Louis vicinity. And Some observers said that this triangular craft was several city blocks long, and about 2 stories high. And that's what they saw gradually sailing over the urban environment on January 5, 2000, just hours before a new moon, which occurred at the 16th degree of Capricorn. So this gives us all something to think about and raises a lot of questions. The first question that's obvious is, are astrological influences in some way causing these events, or possibly serving as attractors or even signals to the observing non-human intelligences? This is something to think about, and we need a lot more research to figure out what the answer is, but it certainly raises a lot of important questions, don't you think? I do. Next up, let's have a look at long-term trends. Long-term trends really do bear on the potential of evolution for human consciousness. That's what it's all about. There are many astrological factors that feed into that. The one I want to focus on tonight is, again, the presence of Saturn in the sign of Pisces. Now, Saturn will be in Pisces from March of 2023, which is just a few months ago now, from March of 2023 all the way through February of 2026. And toward the end of that period, Saturn moves into Aries briefly and then back into Pisces. But for the most part, it's about a 2.5-year period that Saturn is in Pisces. Certainly from now forward and all the way through 2024 and all the way through 2025. So for the foreseeable future, Saturn is in Pisces, and it's a factor that we therefore need to take into consideration as we select our points of view and activities and adapt to world conditions. Every time Saturn passes through a sign, it brings focus on the issues of that particular sign. Pisces is a wonderful sign, just like Virgo is, and it plays an important role and function in the zodiac. Its role is the opposite of the Virgo function, where Virgo makes critical distinctions that we need to know about, how much something weighs, the exact temperature, the length and width of an object, the duration of a phenomena, all those important things that Virgo is so competent at discerning. Pisces is on the other side of it, saying, but what I'm really concerned about is the relationship of one thing to another and how it all fits together, and the unity and the blending of all the consciousness together. Yeah, Neptune is about the erasure of distinctions and the emphasis on, or an emphasis on, commonality. It's a water sign, and it acts within the function of water to dissolve, to cleanse, and therefore to heal in that way. And those are wonderful things about Pisces. But Pisces is also, as a water sign, not given to a great deal of structure, and it may suffer from that. So while Saturn is in Pisces, we're all experiencing, every single one of us, no matter what our individual charts are like, natally or by transit, we're all experiencing a focus on this Pisces principle for 2.5 years. It's a lesson, in other words. Wherever Saturn is, there's a lesson that we need to learn. And the lesson this time is about the issues of Pisces. On the downside, the Pisces archetype tends to passivity. It tends to let stronger forces take control. It might even lean toward submissiveness, or maybe even a giving up instead of a more directed or intentional process or approach. There's a temptation when there's any activation under Pisces. There's a temptation for all of us to feel or identify with the situation of victimization or powerlessness. There's a temptation. Doesn't mean we have to go there. It doesn't mean that everybody inevitably goes there, but there's a temptation to go that route. There's a temptation to focus on all the suffering. There's a lot of suffering in this world. Yes, all the suffering, all the iniquities, all the depressing, hopeless situations around us, and to perseverate or, overthink on those issues, and to conclude, therefore, that everything is hopeless and useless, and you may as well give up anyway and just roll over and let the powers that be control everything. And so complicity enters the picture. Sometimes complicity is a good thing, sometimes not so. Complying with the agenda of entities that don't have humanity's actual good at heart is not necessarily a good thing. It's probably not at all a good thing. As a matter of fact, we need to face up to that. And there are entities that prey upon humanity. I'm not talking about aliens. I'm talking about corporate and governmental structures that are right here on planet Earth. So going into this passive state of mind and believing every bit of propaganda and negative projection that comes out of the news media and organizations that we could name here that frighten us, try to frighten us, and try to take from us our hope and excitement and joy and individual thinking and independence and autonomy. A lot of organizations that have agendas that they want to do that with doesn't really serve us well. This is something I think we need to all look at carefully and decide for ourselves what we want to use our minds for in believing, instead of just passively complying and accepting their point of view. So they want to tell us that the world's falling apart, that the planet's going to collapse, that we don't have any productive power, that the economy is ruined, on and on and on and on and on. And if we take those images and beliefs into our subconscious, guess what? That becomes our reality. So is that a good idea to do that? I don't think so. I think with Saturn and Pisces, what we need to learn to do is to be vigilant about what goes into our subconscious image pools. Put in your subconscious image pools the pictures of what you really want to experience. Love, happiness, productivity, creativity, joy, interaction, freedom. Put those images in there and believe that that's your reality, because whatever you do believe at the deepest level is going to become your outpictured reality. That's part of the lesson of Saturn in Pisces, learning the hard truths, that's Saturn, about the deep subconscious mind, and that's Pisces. So for the next 2 years, we need to be vigilant at the gate of the subconscious. There are lots of ways to do that. Positive affirmations, guided meditations, hypnosis that's structured around building into one's core belief systems the actual desired objectives instead of something else, instead of some other picture that is concocted by other entities for their own purposes. We have a choice, and we have an important choice. And I would say we even have an important responsibility. Saturn correlates to responsibilities. It symbolizes responsibilities. And where is our responsibility for the next couple of years? Well, it's in Pisces. It's in the region of the sensitive, image-making, subconscious self. That's where we need to be vigilant. This is an old truth. It's been known for a long time that subconscious and subliminal programming messages are built into major media and all kinds of other sources. And we've known this for 50 years or more. Now is the time to resurrect that knowledge, use that knowledge, and be vigilant, guarding the gate of your deep subconscious treasure. Because out of that center will come the outpicturing of life conditions. So that's a message for Saturn in Pisces. We can allow ourselves to be run over, trampled, oppressed, and overwhelmed. We can allow that, or we can not. And I would advise that we not. So with Saturn in Pisces, it's time to guard the gate of the inner, subconscious, sensitive, psychic self so that it produces for us what we really desire to experience. I'm Maureen Richmond, signing off for STARSPEAK on the UNX Digital Broadcasting Network. Thank you so much for tuning in, and come back next week. We'll have more to talk about. Meanwhile, you stay starry.